episode 308 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. On this Tuesday night, I will be talking all about tonight's episode of WWE NXT with all the fallout of last Saturday's No Mercy Premium Live event featuring the rematch for the NXT North American Championship, Mysterio versus Williams. All that and more right here, right now. 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Hello, Wrestling Fanatics. Welcome to this Tuesday night episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I know I don't do a new episode of the podcast every Tuesday night. Sometimes I do one on a Tuesday night, sometimes I take off, but I am here tonight to talk about tonight's episode of NXT featuring all of the fallout from last Saturday's No Mercy Premium Live event. And let's get right into it tonight. NXT was live from the Capitol Wrestling Center at the WWE Performance Center, live on USA. Our commentators tonight, Vic Joseph and Booker T. And we start things off with the new NXT champion, Ilja Dragunov. And then we see the new NXT North American champion, Trick Williams. These two have a promo exchange. Like I have said before, not really a big fan of Dragunov, but I'm going to say a big fan, maybe not, but I am impressed with Trick Williams. I think he's been having a good run with the North American Championship. And I'll get to that match in a little bit, as he will be defending that newly won. I know that doesn't make sense. He just won it on Saturday. I don't know why I said that. But I take that back now. But he comes out with Dragunov, and then they are joined by the former NXT champion, Carmelo Hayes. And these three, Carmelo Hayes really puts Trick Williams over here. And in tag team action, we have British Strong Style, Butch and Tyler Bate defeat Gallus, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang. And then we see an in-ring segment with the women. They all want to become the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. Lyra Valkyria, gets the win in this triple threat match by defeating Roxanne Perez and making her return to NXT, Indy Hartwell. I'm not sure if this is a permanent move back to the gold and black brand. Well, if you can still call NXT that, but she was back for tonight anyway. I'm sure you remember, she was recently, not too long ago, called up to the main roster. We'll have to wait and see. If you ask me though, I'd probably say maybe another run in NXT for Indy Hartwell might not be the worst thing in the world. Look at Samuel Shaw. Since they called him up to the, or what's his name now? Dexter Lumis. Since they called him up to the main roster, yeah, he was there having that feud with The Miz, was involved with Gargano, and then is he injured maybe? But has definitely been off TV for a little while. And okay, back to the match. Lyra Valkyria, the new NXT women, or the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. And Gigi Dolan defeats Blair Davenport. We start the first round for the 2023 NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. Kalani Jordan defeats Izzy Dame. That reminds me, actually, what I think. I know she just started wrestling about, I don't know, maybe a month now or so. But wouldn't it be great if to having this breakout tournament on NXT, if they have Izzy in it? I'm sure everybody remembers back when Bayley was on NXT, her little super fan that was always in the crowd there at Full Sail, and now she has started her pro wrestling career, and it would be great to see WWE put her in this breakout tournament. But still, I kind of see how people could say that this might be a little too soon, and who knows, maybe next year we could see her in this tournament. I definitely wouldn't doubt if we do see her in WWE one day. But like I said, I think she may have only been wrestling for about a month or so now. So I could see how some people could say it's too soon. And JC Jane and Thea Hall, the new and improved Thea Hall, even though she's not completely out of the whole Chase U thing just yet, they defeat Lola Vice and Alexa Lopez. And in the main event on this week's episode of NXT, we have the WWE NXT North American Championship on the line. And it is Dominic Mysterio defeating Trick Williams to become a two-time North American champion. I admit it, I was wrong. I talked about this a little bit on Good Morning Wrestling Fans this morning. And I thought that Dominic's stint in NXT was probably going to be wrapping up tonight. They had him drop the title to Trick Williams Saturday at No Mercy, and then have the rematch, and then that would be it. Have him stay on the main roster, or at least for the time being anyway. But well, good news for Dominic, because with what Rhea Ripley told him on Raw last night, she said if he did not win that title for him not to come back. So then that means Dominic can return to Monday Night Raw and still be a part of the Judgment Day. Also, speaking of the Judgment Day, it might just be Damian Priest and Finn Balor, but the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions will be returning to SmackDown this Friday night on Fox. And that was tonight's episode of NXT. Like I said, I don't always do a new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic on a Tuesday night talking NXT, but I decided to do one tonight. Got a pretty big week, and actually it looks like it's going to be a pretty big month for pro wrestling this October. And at this time, I'll just real quick run down the month of October. Tomorrow night we have AEW Dynamite on TBS with all the fallout from last Sunday night's Wrestle Dream pay-per-view. And then Thursday we've got Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Friday, SmackDown and AEW Rampage. Saturday, we have WWE Fastlane Premium Live Event on Peacock and WWE Network. So that's all for this week. And then 1 week from this Saturday, we have Impact's Bound for Glory live on pay-per-view from Chicago, which, like I said, October shaping up to be a pretty big month for pro wrestling. And I know a lot of people talk about and complain about there being too much wrestling these days. And yes, there is a lot, and I'm not saying that I'm able to watch all of it, watch every single bit of pro wrestling that's on TV or streaming, whatever today. But for me, the more pro wrestling there is, the better and the happier I am. Like I always say sometimes, there's no such thing as too much pro wrestling. And before I wrap up, let's see if there's any big news to talk about. And doesn't really look like a whole lot of news tonight. So I'm going to wrap up this week's podcast on this Tuesday night. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you listening. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can still leave your feedback from NXT No Mercy and AEW Wrestle Dream from over last weekend. Also, leave your feedback on tonight's episode of NXT, and you can start leaving your predictions for this Saturday's WWE Fastlane Premium Live event as well. Remember, Instagram 360 Wrestling Podcasts, Facebook 360 Wrestling Podcasts, even though it's not really updated. But the best way on social media to follow 360 Wrestling Podcasts is probably Twitter or X at 360 Wrestling Pod. As soon as I do a podcast on Spreaker, it is tweeted out there. So follow at 360 Wrestling Pod. And that is all for tonight's episode. Once again, thank you for listening, everyone. I will definitely try to have a new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic talking about tomorrow night's AEW Dynamite. And I will be here tomorrow morning for the Wednesday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans to preview that episode. So thank you, everyone. And I will talk to you tomorrow morning. But until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.